Oh, what's up? It's your girl, Pastor Courage Molina, coming to you with our daily Bible reading. This is day 51, and so we're going to be reading Leviticus 22 through 23. This is Bold Faith Community Church. We're an online church for women. We help to, this is what we want to do. We want to help you build a relationship with Christ, bring you into community, empower you to be bold in your faith, and equip you to be a minister of the word of God so that you can courageously go after the calling that God has placed on your life. If you love these videos, then go ahead and hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed so that you don't miss when we go live, when we stream, when we're on. You just don't want to miss the good stuff. So go ahead and do that. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, let's I know I look a little crazy. It's okay. Let's get into it, right? Chapter 22. And these are still the instructions for the priest. If you watched yesterday in chapter 21, it started out that way. Chapter 21 started with instructions for the priest. This is continuing on from that. Chapter 22, the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons to be very careful with the sacred gifts that the Israelites set apart for me, so they do not bring shame on my holy name. I am the Lord. Give them the following instructions. In all future generations, if any of your descendants is ceremonially unclean when he approaches the sacred offering that the people of Israel consecrate to the Lord, he must be cut off from my presence. I am the Lord. If any of Aaron's descendants has a skin disease or any kind of discharge that makes him ceremonially unclean, he may not eat from the sacred offerings until he has been pronounced clean. He also becomes unclean by touching a corpse or by having an emission of semen or by touching a small animal that is unclean or by touching someone who is ceremonially unclean for any reason. The man who is defiled in any of these ways will remain unclean until evening. He may not eat from the sacred offerings until he has bathed himself in water. When the sun goes down, he will be ceremonially clean again and may eat from the sacred offerings, for this is his food. He may not eat an animal that has died a natural death or has been torn apart by wild animals, for this would defile him. I am the Lord. The priest must follow my instructions carefully. Otherwise, they will be punished for their sin and will die for violating my instructions. I am the Lord who makes them holy. No one outside a priest's family may eat the sacred offerings. Even guests and hired workers in a priest's home are not allowed to eat them. However, if the priest buys a slave for himself, the slave may eat from the sacred offerings. And if his slaves have children, they also may share his food. If a priest's daughter marries someone outside the priestly family, she may no longer eat the sacred offerings. But if she becomes a widow or is divorced and has no children to support her, and she returns to live in her father's home as in her youth, she may eat her father's food again. Otherwise, no one outside a priest family may eat the sacred offerings. I just like to say this really quickly that they talk about having slaves, but he's saying that if the priest purchases a slave, that the slave gets to partake like family. Does that seem like a slavery that is the slavery that we often think of here in the United States? No, absolutely not. Even the daughter who was born into the family, who marries someone outside of the family, she's no longer allowed to take care to eat of the sacred things, but the slave and the slave's children are. It says right here, otherwise, no one outside a priest's family may eat the sacred offerings. Seems a little different to me. Verse 14, any such person who eats the sacred offerings without realizing it must pay the priest for the amount eaten, plus an additional 20%. The priest must not let the Israelites defile the sacred offerings brought to the Lord by allowing unauthorized people to eat them. This would bring guilt upon them and require them to pay compensation. I am the Lord who makes them holy. And the Lord said to Moses, give Aaron and his sons and all the Israelites these instructions, which apply both to native Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. If you present a gift as a burnt offering to the Lord, whether it is to fulfill a vow or as voluntary offering, You will be accepted only if your offering is a male animal with no defects. It may be a bull, a ram, or a male goat. Do not present an animal with defects because the Lord will not accept it on your behalf. If you present a peace offering to the Lord from the herd of the flock, whether it is to fulfill a vow or as a voluntary offering, you must offer a perfect animal. It may have no defect of any kind. You must not offer an animal that is blind, crippled, or injured, or that has a wart, a skin sore, or scabs. Such animals must never be offered on the altar as special gifts to the Lord. Mm. If a bull or a lamb has a leg that is too long or too short, it may be offered as a voluntary offering, but it may not be offered to fulfill a vow. If an animal has damaged testicles or is castrated, you may not offer it to the Lord. You must never do this in your own land, and you must not accept such an animal from foreigners and then offer it as a sacrifice to your God. Such animals will not be accepted on your behalf, for they are mutilated or defected. And the Lord said to Moses, when a calf or a lamb or a goat is born, it must be left with its mother for 7 days. From the eighth day on, it will be acceptable as a special gift to the Lord. But you must not slaughter a mother animal and her offspring on the same day, whether from the herd or the flock. When you bring a thanksgiving offering to the Lord, sacrifice it properly, so you will be accepted. Eat the entire sacrificial animal on the day it is presented. Do not leave any of it until the next morning. I am the Lord. You must faithfully keep all my commands by putting them into practice, for I am the Lord. Do not bring shame on my holy name, for I will display my holiness among the people of Israel. I am the Lord who makes you holy. It was I who rescued you from the land of Egypt, that I might be your God. I am the Lord. He's again qualifying what animals can be used as sacrifices, whether you got them from someplace else, excuse me, don't matter. It's still gotta be a certain quality. You can't just be giving the Lord anything. And I just wonder if we pay attention to how God demands the best, God expects the best and wants the best from us. Yes, there are some like, oh, if you don't have this, then you can do this. If you don't have this, you can do this. But it still requires the best. It's not like, oh, we could just give him whatever. I wonder how often we are just giving him whatever in our efforts. And the things that he's called us to do, whether that thing is, I know I always say that, the thing he's called us to do. And I don't mean vocationally speaking. I mean whether it's to be a wife or mom, sister, friend, support staff, leader, whatever. I wonder if we are giving God the best, or if we're like, I like to do a lot of technicalities, like when the Lord tell you to do something, but you kind of don't want to do it because you feel a certain way, or you feel like it's unfair or whatever. So you don't give him the best. But we can see that God, anytime we're getting ready to give God something, it's not so much about what we have compared to another person. It's about giving him our best. We can see that with all these sacrifices. Like, don't give me nothing that's tore up. Give me the best of what you got. Chapter 23, the appointed festivals. These are a lot of festivals. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. These are the Lord's appointed festivals, which you are to proclaim as official days for Holy Assembly. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of complete rest, an official day for Holy Assembly. It is the Lord's Sabbath day, and it must be observed wherever you live. In addition to the Sabbath, there are the Lord's appointed festivals, the official days for Holy Assembly that are to be celebrated at their proper times each year. So first of all, this is right under the section of appointed festivals. The first thing that the Lord is telling them to do is to keep the Sabbath, that it's going to be a day of Holy Assembly, an official day for Holy Assembly, and complete rest. So that means that we're not resting from Holy Assembly, but it is a day for Holy Assembly. Verse 5, the Lord's Passover. This is the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The Lord's Passover begins at sundown on the 14th day of the first month. On the next day, the 15th day of the month, you must begin celebrating the festival of unleavened bread. This festival to the Lord continues for 7 days, and during that time, the bread you eat must be made without yeast. On the first day of the festival, all the people must stop their ordinary work and observe an official day for Holy Assembly. For 7 days, you must present special gifts to the Lord. On the seventh day, the people must again stop all their ordinary work to observe an official day for holy assembly. As I was reading, I was getting tripped up a little bit because I'm thinking, well, what day of the month? On the 15th day of the month, the Lord's festival begins at sundown on the 14th day of the first month. So is that January? Is it not January? I really don't know. So I'm not really asking. I haven't really looked into it, but I just wonder about some of these things. I know that on some of the calendars, um, they have what's up there, President's Day. On some of the calendars, they have some of the Jewish holidays, Yom Kippur and things like that. But I don't know. I'm always wondering about things like that. Do we always have this calendar, this 12-month calendar? When did the 12-month calendar start? We couldn't have always had the 12-month calendar, right? When did they start counting months? How did they know that the months were 30 days or 31 days or 28 days? How did we get the present day calendar? Those are the things that I think of when I read the Bible and it's talking about days and times that things are supposed to be observed. Just curious. Verse 9. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you enter the land I am giving you, and you harvest its first crops, bring the priest a bundle of grain from the first cutting of your grain harvest. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest will lift it up before the Lord so it may be accepted on your behalf. On that same day, you must sacrifice a 1-year-old male lamb with no defects as a burnt offering to the Lord. With it, you must present a grain offering consisting of 4 quarts, choice flour moistened with olive oil. It will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. You must also offer 1 quart of wine as a liquid offering. Do not eat any bread or roasted grain or fresh kernels on that day until you bring this offering to your God. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. From the day, so this is the festival of harvest. From the day after the Sabbath, the day you bring the bundle of grain to be lifted up as special offering, count off 7 full weeks. Keep counting until the day after the 7th Sabbath, 50 days later. Then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. From wherever you live, bring 2 loaves of bread to be lifted. So from wherever you live, bring 2 loaves of bread to be lifted up before the Lord as a special offering. Make these loaves from 4 quarts of choice flour and bake them with the yeast. They will be an offering to the Lord from the first of your crops. Along with the bread, present 7 1-year-old male lambs with no defects, 1 young bull and 2 rams as burnt offerings to the Lord. These burnt offerings, together with the grain offerings and liquid offerings, will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Then you must offer 1 male goat as a sin offering and 2 1-year-old male lambs as a peace offering. The priest will lift up the 2 lambs as a special offering to the Lord, together with the loaves representing the first of your crops. These offerings, which are holy to the Lord, belong to the priest. That same day will be proclaimed and are holy to the Lord. I'm just kidding. That same day will be proclaimed an official day for Holy Assembly, a day on which you do no ordinary work. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. When you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your field, and do not pick up what the harvesters drop. Leave it for the poor and the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God, which is great because if you've read the story of Esther, no, if you've read the story of Ruth, then you know that Ruth and Naomi were able to glean in someone else's field because this was left for them, right? They knew that this was a practice. This was left for them. This is where the Lord sets that practice up. Verse 23, the festival of trumpets. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel on the first day of the appointed month in early autumn. You are to observe a day of complete rest. It will be an official day for holy assembly, a day commemorated with loud blast of trumpet. You must do no ordinary work on that day. Instead, you are to present special gifts to the Lord. Verse 26. Then the Lord said to Moses, be careful to celebrate the Day of Atonement on the 10th day of that same month, 9 days after the festival of trumpets. You must observe it as an official day for Holy Assembly, a day to deny yourselves and present special gifts to the Lord. Do not work during that entire day because it is the Day of Atonement, when offerings of purifications are made for you, making you right with the Lord your God. All who do not deny themselves that day will be cut off from God's people, and I will destroy anyone among you who does any work on that day. Rest and observing this Day of Atonement seems very important. You must not do any work at all. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. This will be a Sabbath day of complete rest for you, and on that day you must deny yourselves. This day of rest will begin at sundown on the ninth day of the month and extend until sundown on the 10th day. The Festival of Shelters. Verse 33. And the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Begin celebrating the Festival of Shelters on the 15th day. Is this right? No, I'm missing a page. Hold on. On the 15th day of the appointed month, 5 days after the Day of Atonement. This festival to the Lord will last for 7 days. On the first day of the festival, you must proclaim an official day for Holy Assembly when you do no ordinary work. For 7 days, you must present special gifts to the Lord. The 8th day is another holy day on which you present your special gifts to the Lord. This will be a solemn occasion, and no ordinary work may be done that day. These are the Lord's appointed festivals. Celebrate them each year as official days for Holy Assembly by presenting special gifts to the Lord, burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, and liquid offerings, each on its proper day. These festivals must be observed in addition to the Lord's regular Sabbath days, and the offerings are in addition to your personal gifts, the offerings you give to fulfill your vows, and the voluntary offerings you present to the Lord. Remember that this 7-day festival to the Lord, the Festival of Shelters, begins on the 15th day of the appointed month. After you have harvested all the produce of the land, the first day and the 8th day of the festival will be days of complete rest. On the first day, gather branches from magnificent trees, palm fronds, boughs from leafy trees, and willows that grow by the streams. Then celebrate with joy before the Lord your God for 7 days. You must observe this festival to the Lord for 7 days every year. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed in the appointed month from generation to generation. For 7 days, you must live outside in little shelters. All native-born Israelites must live in shelters. This will remind each new generation of Israelites that I made their ancestors live in shelters when I rescued them from the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses gave the Israelites these instructions regarding the annual festivals of the Lord. I really like that. I mean, not necessarily the living in the little shelters or whatever, but I really love the idea that there is this thing that they're doing every single year, several times a year, so that they can be reminded, and so that this thing that God has done can be passed down from generation to generation. I often talk about spiritual amnesia. Sometimes we can't remember what the Lord has done for us, and it's difficult for us to pass down generation to generation the things that God has done, because we don't often have a time in this present day where we are sitting down to celebrate what God has done for our people, how we've come out of slavery, how God has brought us out of poverty, or whatever that thing is. We often don't have a time where we sit and celebrate. So I love that. And I often think about, like, how can I incorporate the idea, right? Because the idea is not to make a God of the festival, right? But the idea is that there would be an appointed time where we wouldn't work, where we would make offerings to God, and we would be reminded of what God has done. I often think about that, more than just like Easter and Christmas, I guess, has done for us, as a people, and just me, myself, from generation to generation. So just kind of think about that. Listen, I hope this has blessed you on this wonderful Friday, I should probably say fantastic, on this fantastic Friday. Go ahead and make sure you like the video if you like the video, and hit that little notification button so that you can join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. EST as we live stream our Saturday sermon. It's going to be really great. It is, I'm teaching from the book of Acts, chapter 5, and the topic is worthy of the suffering. If you are going through anything, if you feel like you have been praying for something and waiting on God and you just haven't seen it, if you have been experiencing any suffering in your life, in this current season, I would love for you to join us, because this is going to help you to get a new perspective and walk renewed and reassured about what God has called you to do. All right. And who you are for God. So if you need just some encouragement in that area, be sure to come and join us tomorrow, 8 a.m. EST. Cannot wait to see y'all. All right. Love y'all. Thank y'all as always. And we will resume the reading again on Monday. All right. Love y'all. Later. Bye.